All right, so here we are, day 27 of this Men in Recovery series. And this week, got the pleasure of being able to highlight the work that I've been doing with the Meadows and interview just some of the wonderful men in the Meadows community. And one of them is my friend Scott Davis, who relatively new to the Meadows, but certainly not new to the field, and certainly not new to recovery, which is what this conversation is all about. So welcome, Scott.
Thank you very much, Dave. All right.
So one question for you.
All right.
And I start every conversation the same. And that is, what is the greatest gift that recovery has given you to help you be the man you always knew you could be?
I would have to say it would be belief in myself.
Say more about
that a little bit.
Yeah.
I grew up with a sincere belief that either I wasn't good enough, or I wasn't smart enough, or I didn't know the answer, or I just didn't know something. I wasn't enough, basically. And recovery has given me that sense of that I can believe in myself, that I can believe that I am inherently good and I have inherent gifts, and that I can share those gifts in a way that can help people as well as help myself.
So how did that show up for you as a man, that lack of confidence, that lack of belief in yourself, that lack of feeling valued? Were you just a shy wallflower who never talked to anybody and stayed out of the way of everyone?
It was something like that. I think, the best story that I have is me and my wife were sitting at a restaurant. We had been married for just a short time, and the waiter comes up and he was disrespectful to my wife. Said something to her and he was kind of rude. And she looks at me like, well, aren't you going to say something? Aren't you going to do something? Aren't we going to get up and leave? Mm-hmm. And I just kind of sat there, and it was at that point I'm like, I whatever it is, whatever it keeps me from saying something can't happen anymore. That I can't, that if I'm going to be the man I want to be and be able to say, hey, you were disrespectful to my wife, or even hey, we'd like the booth seat rather than the table. That I could say that and be confident in that. And so that's kind of where the transformation and where the work started. And then after that, I went through 3 years of pretty intense therapy and men's group and doing 12 steps and just all sorts of just making that transition happen, because I didn't know, at that point I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I had to do something. And of course there had been a lot of things along the way that had happened that really kind of made me want to do that work.
So it's a powerful example, because so often we view men as kind of like bulls in a china shop.
Right.
And I was even being somewhat facetious in how I acted, in how I was asking you that question, because I know, like, for me, how it shows up when I'm feeling insecure is I act, I used to, I'd like to think, act overconfident.
Right.
When I feel like I had any value, internally I would act one way, but externally, I don't know, I'd kind of vacillate between being shy and isolated, and then being like the life of the party. And this is long into my recovery.
Right. Right.
So what's this idea of being the man that you wanted to be, the man that you wanted to be for your family, the man you wanted to be, how has that taken shape for you? What's that journey been like for you?
It's been a constant journey of whenever I have a chance to say the right thing or do the right thing, taking that opportunity. I mean, I look at how I got to the Meadows, and really it was just I was asked the question, well, do you want to go to the Meadows? And of course, my first was, well, you're not good enough. You're not good enough to do that job. They'll find out you're a fraud. And it was no. I'm going to say yes. Because obviously if they're asking me to come, if they're asking me to even interview, then they've already looked at my resume and they've looked at everything and they think that I'm worth looking at. And it's been like that with everything, whether it be going into graduate school or finishing my degree or going for that supervisor job or anything like that. It's just been that constant, well, do you want it? Is this something that you, or are you gonna say yes, or are you just gonna hide in the background?
So go ahead.
I see leadership that way too. I mean, being a leader is oftentimes saying the things or just standing up. It's not necessarily you have to be a bully or anything like that, but being able to stand up when you need to.
So I can hear the critics in my ear already, and I can hear them saying, a man talking about belief in himself. Problem with men is that they believe too much in themselves. How would you respond to that?
I've treated many a narcissist, and I found, they're very good about talking about themselves, but there's no substance. There's no inner being there. There's nothing there that you can hold on to. And I say, with the journey of a man, there's got to be something to hold on to. And, when I talk about belief in myself, it is not that I am talking about all my boasting or braggadocious or any way. It's basically that belief in myself is that belief that I am worthy, that I'm worthy of happiness, that I'm worthy of good things, that I'm worthy of recovery, that I have the ability to say, I'm even worthy of forgiveness. And that's what it is for me, is that it's not necessarily, I watch, you watch different men and the way they approach things, and it's all boasting and this is, these are my attributes. And I'm not saying these are not things that I've done that make me the man. It's that this is who I am that makes me the man.
Yeah, so, I think that's something that's often confused with men, is it's the external presentation versus the internal experience. Right. And I hear so many people taking shots at men because they're arrogant and they're cocky and they're vain. And, to be able to look past that, I think maybe takes a little bit of thoughtfulness.
Right.
It is a turnoff. Being with guys who have narcissistic qualities, it's a turnoff.
Right.
And yet, at the same time, when you know that underneath that is a lot of pain, if you're not put off by it and you're also not seduced by it, you can have a different connection with that man. But what I hear you saying is, it doesn't matter if you're the clinical director. It doesn't matter if you are this much in recovery. It doesn't matter about the car. It doesn't matter that. The belief in yourself you're talking about is having inherent value as a human being. Right. That transcends any of the external stuff, any of the stuff that society says gives us value. And I would say in particular tells men that gives us value, that, we have to accumulate a certain amount of titles, of money, of this, of that, in order to be fully coronated as men.
Right. And I would say, if all this goes away, if tomorrow they come in here and they say you're not the right guy for the job, I'll be okay. That's the other thing, is that a lot of times we put so much stock in our job or in what we do that we forget who we are. And for me, I'm like, that you talk about what is recovery giving you. It's giving me that sense that I am okay regardless of what happens. Regardless if this all goes away tomorrow, I'll be okay because it's gone away. That's the other part, is that when it went away, that's all I had to look at was me. And if I'm ever in that situation again, I'll be all right.
That's the real gift, right? The gift of being grounded in who we are as men. And of course, I would guess that, when you have that authentic belief in yourself, you really don't have to show up with a lot of bright lights. You don't have to have anything in neon, because you're not looking for that external validation. You're not looking for the world to tell you that Scott's okay.
Right.
And I think that's a difficult thing for a lot of men. And it's certainly difficult for men to have this open of a conversation about that piece, but that's probably one of the biggest things we have in common with each other, but yet we dance around it a lot and don't talk about the fact that, we don't feel like we have value. We don't feel like we're lovable. And I think a lot of people are guilty of attributing that only to women.
Right.
And I think that's a real disservice, because then that keeps men from opening up about that and sharing that. And I love how you have brought that to this conversation. So how does this affect your relationships with your family?
Well, my family, it's funny, at times they ask me, like, what do you do? And I'm like, I try to tell them, I do this, I go to meetings, I make decisions. And I'm like, but that's not really what they want to know. It's still that idea of they want to know me. And so a lot of times, it doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter that I'm the clinical director of the Meadows or anything like that. They could care less. Matter of fact, they don't really care at all. What they want to know is, like, are you coming home tonight? Are you going to be present? Are you going to be open? Are you going to give me some good advice? Are you going to listen to me? And that's that thing, is that when we step away from, I got to be that guy, or I got to be the guy that comes in as an all in charge and doesn't have any emotions. If I can step away from that guy and they can see the real me, then that gives them permission to be the real them. I get, I've always wanted this ease with my kids, and when I'm in myself, when I am perfectly myself, I have such ease with my kids that sometimes when I think about it, it makes me a little emotional, because it's just a wonderful thing, because they're not scared of me. They can talk to me about stuff, and I become their dad, and I become a real person rather than just some guy that pays the bills and make sure that the TV works, So that's the way I see it.
Well, and that's really what fathers used to be relegated to.
Yeah. And I would say the same thing, when we're talking about my relationship with my spouse, is that she doesn't care about all that stuff either. She cares about me and hearing me and talking to me and actually being heard and knowing what I think, rather than, what I can do for the family. And that makes it a very comfortable place to live, a comfortable place to go home to.
That's awesome. I mean, what a great gift of recovery. So this is National Recovery Month. This is a time where we celebrate recovery, and it's less about who we were and
right.
much more about who we are. And of course, my focus is really on who are we as men. And I love that that piece about belief in ourselves, and I love that idea of grounding. What would you say is the next part of the journey for you?
Oh, see, that's the unknown. That's the unknown question. I mean, I think that's also the gift, is that when you start looking at being present and being where you're at and believing in yourself, you don't have to. I mean, I don't even think about that. Sometimes I get lost. I'll kind of go, oh, what is that? Why aren't you thinking about that? And I'm like, because I don't think about that. I'm just concentrating on being here, being with my family, being with my wife, being at my job and doing my job well, and then allowing the universe to do what it's going to do. And that makes it, because if I start down that road and start worrying about things, I start getting anxious, I start getting upset, and then I get into old patterns of using behavior, or even small patterns of using behavior, and that's not a good place to be. So really, I don't know what the road is next. I don't know what's going to happen next. I'm just waiting and preparing and getting ready for it.
A man okay with not having the answers. Oh my God. What has become of us?
Sometimes I don't know, man, but I'm like, that's where I live. I didn't when I got here, I didn't know I was going to come here. I was just doing the next right thing. And I think that's what it's about. I do the next right thing. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to wake up. What's the next right thing? Well, I got to go work out. So that's what I'm going to go do, because you got to take care of your heart, So, you got these things that you have to do, but at the same time, it's just doing the next right thing.
Right on. Well, another great interview. Scott, I always ask my guests to have the last word. So I just want to, again, thank you. Wish you a happy recovery month. It's great to see you. It's been a little while. And as I like to say, take us home.
All right. I wrote this on the board today. I was giving a lecture, and I wrote it on the board because I believe that this is the biggest thing, that with struggle comes ownership. And, we always want to do it the easy way, and there is no easy way. So with struggle comes ownership, because I own every part of my life.
That's awesome.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Dan.
You bet.